Hello everybody, welcome into Rock Painting 101. So if you've followed the channel for a long time, I used to do dangle rocks all the time. Here's a little example, kind of the inspiration up here in the upper right hand corner that we're working with today. I'm working on a white stone. You can base coat any stone white and it doesn't really have to be flat. The good thing about this style and design is that you really can customize it any way you like. And it's very forgiving because you can fix your mistakes pretty easily. Lots of times I do these primarily 100% with paint pens. Today I'm actually going to be using some dotting tools, and I've got my neon colored paints back here. So I've got yellow, orange, pink and green neon colors that I'm going to use for filling in. So you can fill with whatever you like, and you'll see what I mean here when we get to that part of the designs. So the first thing we're going to do is just taking a black paint pen. I'm using a 1M. This one's the Artistro. You can use Posca, whatever you have. And we're just going to lay our design out on our stone. Now the thing with dangle style rocks is you want areas that you're going to be able to fill in and add color later. You just want the outer edges of your design to really be the way you want them to look because you're filling them in. Again, like I said, they can be very forgiving. So we're going to write the word shine on our rock, and I'm doing these letters that have the space so that I can fill in later. So on an S can be a little bit tricky, so just do it a wider shape than you maybe normally would do. And then that way you can come back and add these second curves to give you that thickness that you can go in and fill in later with color. Letters that have a vertical stripe are a lot easier, just basically placing down a rectangle. A lot of curls and loops used in this kind of design, so you can add as many as you want. These letters are just to kind of inspire you. They don't have to be exactly the same. So same with the N, we're just going to make our vertical line first and then add our arch in there. I'm giving it a curl, just not quite as much as the H, so it has a little bit of a difference. And then our E, we're going to do the same thing we did with that S. We're going to do it wide and then come back and add in that extra. Now in order to give it something to dangle from, I'm going to loop my E all the way around to the top where we're going to have our sun. So I'm going to give it a place to land first, so I'm going to jump ahead and do my sun up here so that I know where I'm aiming with my line. Now when you're working right on your rock with 1M pens, use a light touch. You do not have to press hard to get the paint onto these rocks. I always say the paint wants to be on the rock, so just don't press hard. Pressing hard is what usually causes those little splatters to happen every once in a while. You know, last week's live we were doing splatter paint on purpose with them, but most of the time that's not what you want. So just a nice light touch. And we're going to bring this sun all the way over to this side, and then we're going to bring it all the way around to the base of our E so that we're connected. I'm going to dot my I here, and that dot I actually think I'm going to have be a dangle coming from the top, so we're going to connect it to the top here. So we've got our word on our rock. Now here I had the loop go all the way around. I'm not doing that. Pretend this line's not here because it got in the way of me dropping my dangles off of my letters. Now this is why this is such a fun idea to do. I just realized I don't have my comments on my screen. This is why this is such a fun design. Any shape rock, you can really make it work for that rock. So you're going to start creating these dangles that are going to drop down off of your rock. I do want a little bit to come off the sun here, so we're going to add like kind of a loop down to fill in that space over there. Oop, I talked too long, got a little dry. There we go. I'm going to have my S loop up and around and down to the bottom. Now my only, if you could call it, rule for the dangles is you have to have a weight at the bottom of the dangle. So I always add a circle, you can do hearts, you can do diamonds, you can do any little charm, if you want to call them that, you want, and you can add as many on each of them as you want as well. So even on this S up here, let's give that a little dangle. We'll give it a couple little dots there at the end. So we're going to just start adding these little drop downs off of our letters. You can be as playful with them as you want, but you can have them hang down, filling in the space of your rock. Now don't worry if there's a line down the center, because we're going to add dots of paint. It's going to cover that up. So you don't have to be overly careful about your design on these dangles. As long as the outer edge of your shape is something you like, then you're good to go. So you can do ones right in the middle, a couple dots on either side, and you can get dots really tiny, so don't worry. If it almost looks like a completely filled in black dot, you're gonna be able to still add color on top of that. So I'm just gonna work my way around here, adding my dangles around. With this design, I'm going to stick with mostly dots just because it's kind of the easiest if you are not familiar. If you've ever seen me do a dangle rock, you know, you can give a thumbs up in the comments. I haven't done one in a while. You can break apart your letters as well so that you can have different colors within your letters too. And we're just going to come through here. You can create large dots at the top. Have like a little cluster with the dangle and just fill in the space. This is where all your little pops of color are going to come from. You can make areas where you have kind of two coming down together like that. You can attach them together, kind of have 1, 2 come off that one, just one off the other. You can even add little dots along your curved lines, like that. We're going to have this E loop down this way. 2 at the bottom of that one, like that. And let's see here, let's have these 2 letters create kind of an arch with 1 coming down here. And the good thing is, after we start adding color in, you can always come back and add more to these designs as well. Just kind of got a little sloppy on my curve, so I'm going to recurve that. And we'll add a couple of dots along there. Let's do a little series of them up here. So all these spaces will have color, so this guy needs a few more dots on it. Go in here off that edge. Just kind of like that. I'm going to keep it pretty simple because I have to fill these in, and we are live, and I don't want you on here for an hour or anything crazy like that. A little bit of color there on that. All right, so once you've kind of got your basic design, like I said, you can come back and add more color, more dangles, more dots as you go along. If you see an area where you think, oh, I just wish I had another little pop of color. So I'm going to start with yellow because I know I want my sun to be yellow. So I just shake your paints well with the lid on nice and tight if you're doing it this way. And then you'll get a nice little blob of paint in your lid, and you can work right out of your lid. Now I have my dotting tools here. If you do not have dotting tools, there are so many other things you can use for something like this. You can use toothpicks, needles. For tiny dots like this, you want something nice and pointed, nails, you know, anything that comes to a point, you'll be able to get a drop or dollop of paint. You'll see even this one here, it comes to almost a point. So that one you can kind of get in, like when I'm doing some of my letters, into these corners really well. So if you don't have a full set of dotting tools, a toothpick would work really good for that. But I'm primarily using pretty small tools here. The only one I'm gonna grab my bigger tool for is to do this sun dot, just so you're not watching me color it in forever. So I'm just gonna get a nice little dollop of paint and get that taken care of here right off the bat. I'm gonna place that right down in there so that we can get on to the rest of our design. Now, if you only have the little ones or something small, just get it in there, work your way around. You'll be able to fill that in anyways. So we're just gonna take one color at a time and start filling in all of our little charms and dangles. So just pick and choose. If you really wanna think about it and plan out colors, you can. I have not. I'm just gonna kind of work my way around and add yellow. Now when you use dotting tools, your dots are going to get smaller and smaller as you place them, so you can get down into these super tiny dots pretty easily as well. So the first dot you do when you load up, pick a big dot to do first, or a bigger dot. And even how far down you press is how big your dot will become when you place it. But you can get pretty tiny little dots with these. And then I'm gonna pick a letter here to do some of the filling in with that pointier sided one that I have. So let's go in and let's have that whole eye be. So now if you're working in a space like this with a toothpick, I always like to get a good amount of paint on there, place it someplace towards the middle first, so that you get most of your paint down, and then you can kind of move it out into the edges. Instead of having a bunch of paint and going right down in that edge, you might flood over really easily. So again, I'll place it right in that center where I'm not gonna go over, and then kind of push it out and into those points. You can go back afterwards and touch up your lines if you need to, using, I've got my little mini micron pen here. Sometimes I'll use that. You can go in with a dotting tool with a little bit of black paint, or even your 1M Posca a little bit. I'm gonna stop there for, oh, I gotta do my sun rays with my yellow. After that, I'm gonna stop with the yellow. I like to kind of bounce around on the colors so I get a good balance of colors again. So I place my big stripe of paint in the center like that. And then kind of work it out to those edges, because we want to leave that nice black outline. It really makes these colors pop on the rock. I saw a few people earlier mentioning where they're watching from. It's always fun. I love seeing how far these lives stretch. So feel free, if you're in rock painting groups too, you can share this into your local rock painting groups. Get those people inspired. A lot of times people join the groups because they find a rock but think, oh, I can't paint them. We all know that's not true. And this is one of those designs, when it's done, it looks very impressive, but after you watch the process, you see, hey, you can do it. And it's okay to lay this on nice and thick. It dries just nice and flat. Obviously, if you're working at home, take your time. I'm moving a little faster than I would if I wasn't live. But I love these super bright colors. I don't even think they look quite as bright on the screen as they do in person. All right, so now I'm just gonna bounce from color to color and just be filling in all these spaces. Like I said earlier, I know people kind of join in at different times. You can definitely fill in using paint pens as well, if you're like your paint pens. I've done lots of dangles with paint pens, but I know not everybody has them, so I just wanted to show, you know, these can be done with acrylic paint as well. I don't think I could do the lining very well without a paint pen, but I know even those that don't use paint pens a lot tend to have at least one for lining. And if you don't, maybe you should. They're very handy to have around. Do want to make sure that your dots are thicker as they dry. The edges of them will be slightly thinner. So you do want to have them thick enough that the black doesn't show through. Occasionally you may have to go back in and add a second coat or a second dot on some of your pieces. I have had dangles where I've done flowers. You can do flowers on your dangles, hearts. But if you're just getting started, sometimes it's fun to start with just the dots. Just to kind of learn what you want to do. I can tell already that I want more dots on that dangle specifically. It's very plain Jane. So I'm going to come back in now and add those so that gets a second to dry. And let's hop on over to our green here. I couldn't find my blue. The set I have had lots of colors in it, and I misplaced my blue, but that's okay. This has plenty of brightness. Oop, I got a little goopy. You want to be careful not to let your dots flood together as well when you're doing two next to each other like that, especially if you're going in with the same color. The edge will dry pretty quick if you're coming back with a second color. If it does flood together, you can go back in, like I said, with like a micron pen or something like that to kind of pull them back apart. I'm going to switch over to the other side for this one so I can get in that edge. Okay, and let's get some of these letters filled in here. So you can see some of those yellow dots. We'll go back over and do a second yellow dot, and that will make it so you can't see that black. But that's what I was talking about. Sometimes, especially with like a yellow, the green will probably be okay. We'll see when it dries. But some colors will be a little bit more opaque than others, depending on how thick your dot was. It's pretty easy to go back and add a second little dot on top. So we have orange left, so we'll do orange in there. Let's do, I think I'm gonna come back and do pink on this E. So we'll do half the N orange, half the N green. On here. And as you add your colors, you'll really start to kind of decide where you want things to be. You usually go back around to each color twice and hit those dots. You usually can tell which ones need a second dot. Actually, let's do the E in orange. do the top of the N in the pink. Missed a whole dangle here. It's got no color on it so far. Ooh, sorry, bonked you there. Okay. Let's go back to our, I know we did yellow first. Let's go back to our yellow, that way we can get some of these dotted again. But you can already tell. Here he is. I need that second dot on top. It's just such a bright and cheerful design. I really like it with these neon colors. Let's come back over here and do this one in yellow. Start filling in some of these ones that don't have any color yet. And let's see here. Let's hop over to our pink. Okay. Couple big ones left there. Fill in the end, and I think we've got maybe one or two little spots here. Finish up. We are close to done here. Okay, once you've got all of your little dots and dangles filled in, you can kind of take a peek at it, decide, is there some place that you want to add more? I always like to err on the side of you can come back and add more. You don't have to overdo it. Having a little bit of space and air between your dangles is nice. It kind of helps them kind of pop. I'm really liking where it's at. I think I'm going to let it be. I was going to show you here too. I've got to do a couple second coats on some of my dots on this other one, but if you don't have a white stone, I did do one on like a gray stone here. All I did was put down a white base coat, and I even just went along the outside edge with this swirling circle just a few times very loosely just to kind of frame it in. But so you don't have to have bright white stones to do this kind of design, but you can see like they're completely different as far as how the dangles ended up laying and things like that. I have not gone back and done a second coat on any of that, so you can see there's a few areas I'll have to touch up. But other than that, I can show you on this one. I don't want to go to this one quite yet because I don't want to risk getting any wet paint on my micron pen, but if you want to be able to, you can go back and touch up certain areas if your paint flooded over or if you lost your outline on your dot. I did much better on this one here with you guys live than I did on the first one here, but you can just go back through. These are super fine tip. You do want to make sure you're 100% dry, but you can come back in and just kind of crisp up your outlines. Like I did a couple hearts on this one. Just like that. It can make a really big difference to go through and do that. I constantly lightly doodle off the tip of my micron if I'm working on my rocks, if you don't want to get dust or anything into them. So I hope you enjoyed this fun little dangle design. This is definitely something you will enjoy doing. Dangles are like endless as far as what you can do with them. I know if you follow the page, like I said, I've been doing them for years and I've done them lots of different designs, you can do names, you can do seasons, you can do whatever you want to do. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure to let me know what you think in the comments. If you do try one out, come back and share it in the comments as well. We'll see you next week with something fun and new for you to try out. Bye-bye.